If you have a house to sell,
La Bella, La Bella.
Selling property in Brooklyn? You need a trusted name. Charles LaBella Real Estate, 1-800-USA-BELL, or just dial LaBella, L-A-B-E-L-L-A, a trusted name for many years, always ready to serve you better. Call Charles LaBella for a free, on-the-spot, no-obligation appraisal. To quote Charles LaBella and the Action Team, and remember, it doesn't take us a century to sell your house. And now, toll-free, 1-800-USA-BELL, or just dial LaBella. While they're open 7 days a week, they're especially effective in the Bay Ridge, Bensonhurst, Sunset Park, and Sheepshead Bay areas of Brooklyn. And remember, they say it doesn't take us a century to sell your house, and you'll soon find out how easy selling really is. What's their secret? Plain and simply, anxious buyers ready to pay you top dollar. So call Charles LaBella Real Estate, toll-free, 1-800-USA-BELL, or just dial 718-LaBella. Let's take a minute to talk about FRA, Furniture Rental Associates, the only name you need to remember when you need office furniture in a hurry. Imagine yourself setting up your first office or moving to new quarters, and the furniture you ordered won't be ready for 2 months or more, but you've got to move in next week. Your business can't afford costly downtime, so speed is essential. When you call FRA, Furniture Rental Associates, at 212-868-0300. I'll repeat that. The professional team can usually have you up and running within 48 hours. That's 48 hours for desks, chairs, files, conference room, and reception furniture, everything you need. You'll be amazed at the results and the selection, and you should know this is not just typical rental furniture, but top-line pieces by major manufacturers, and in most cases, custom designed by FRA. Your clients will never know you're rented. For fast and affordable service, call the professionals, FRA, Furniture Rental Associates. I'll give the number twice, 212-868-0300. That's FRA, 212-868-0300. If you're looking for a special gift, remember this special name, Edith Suskin. Gift Specialist Extraordinaire on Staten Island, 528 Forest Avenue. I'll repeat that. The gift you want for a birthday, wedding, baby, the gentleman or the lady in your life. The holidays is waiting there for you. Edith Suskin and her staff offer warm, personalized attention to everybody. Gifts start as low as $5 and they go as high as you like. China, silver, crystal, pewter, exciting display. Besides new gifts, Edith Suskin presents a group of antiques and antique jewelry, one-of-a-kind treasures. Avocation for Edith is searching out great buys for you. She also has brass umbrellas, leather accessories, a bridal registry, wedding invitations, music boxes, kaleidoscopes, and gourmet food gifts. Edith Suskin does it all, and she does it all well. Her free, fantastic gift wrapping is a legend on Staten Island. If you consider yourself a discriminating shopper, shop Edith Suskin on Staten Island at 528 Forest Avenue. For all inquiries and for her holiday catalog, call, let me give Edith Suskin's number twice, 718-447-0716. That's 718-447-0716. There comes a time when a loved one is confined at home. It's good to know their physical needs are met by a fine supply house. So look to A&O Surgical Supplies in the Bronx at 266 Gun Hill Road for prompt, reliable service and sales, repairs, rentals, wheelchairs, hospital beds, walkers, and commodes. They have ostomy supplies, Hollister and Squibb, Convatec, United, and many other brands. Full-range urinary and incontinent products, Chucks underpads, adult diapers, external and internal catheters, and undergarments to make every day more comfortable and enjoyable. A&O Surgical carries gauzes, sponges, tapes, sterile wraps, and bandages. They fit mastectomy forms and bras. They carry diabetic supplies, bathroom safety aids, and a full range of back braces and supports. And, of course, you may walk in comfort with A&O Surgical orthopedic shoes. A cast is taken of your feet and fitted accordingly to doctor's prescription for your ease. And remember, when you call A&O Surgical, you are working with people who've been caring for 25 years. Medicare and most Medicaid accepted. A&O Surgical. Call 212-654-1882. Again, 212-654-1882. You know, the problem of doing nothing, and everybody thinks you've done something, rumors, insinuendo, bony finger of indignation pointed at you unfairly. I'm the beneficiary of the opposite. There's something I did once upon a time that was absolutely irredeemably awful. It's been written about in books with my name spelled correctly, and nobody believes it. Everybody thinks it's a joke. Did you miss it? I don't mind telling it. I'm going to leave the name of the radio station mythical for a few minutes, because the same station has the same name today, even though it's not the same radio station. It's gone through a change of ownership. It's been hung up by the heels to dry, and I just think it'd be wrong for me to give, if the station had changed its name, then I would have said the name of the station was the old W. But I mean, why? Why? Because that same station today has the same letters, but it's not the same station. So let's give them amnesty and pardon and get on to the story. Fidel Castro was coming to America. See, this was the number one station in New York. I almost forgot that largest audience. It was rock and roll. And, I mean, they didn't have commentators, interviewers, analysts. All they had was a turntable and a lawyer. What was I doing there? That's another story. But anyhow, I mean, I had no talk show. I was just sort of on staff. They wanted to experiment with someday possibly playing with the concept of a talk show, but there was nothing like this on the air. Rock and roll, wall to wall. So Fidel Castro came to town, and the news director said, Barry, Fidel is going to speak in the mall on Central Park Mall, and then he's going to Manhattan Center, and we thought we'd take a tape recorder with us and go out and cover some of the reaction. And of course, you speak Spanish. He was talking to me, made straight A's under Miss Mitchell, Greensboro, North Carolina, 10th grade. He said, why don't you translate what Fidel says into our tape recorder, and then we'll go to a phone. This was a miracle in those days. It's even handier today. You know, you can record something and then go to a phone and feed that right onto the air live from a tape recorder. He said, we'll do that, and it'll be real good. I said, fine. I never translated simultaneously for a dictator on the air before. I thought that was fun. Summer night. So we went to Central Park, and Fidel was in the middle of a very long speech, and I guess we stayed for about 20 minutes, and I translated a few minutes simultaneously into a tape recorder. So then our party from the station, consisting of the number 2 man and the number 3 man. Number 1 man wasn't there. The owner wasn't there. But this was, except for that, this was the high command. This was no bunch of renegades. This was no Ollie North. We were the brass of that station. So the problem was finding a phone to feed Fidel Castro's speech, you know, a little part of it anyhow in my translation, into a telephone and then get on to Manhattan Center. I think I told you it was a hot summer night, and we couldn't find a phone booth that wasn't being used. So I said, wait a minute. I don't live that far from here. It's a hot night. I have a terrace. I got some beer in the icebox. Let's go to my place, and we'll just feed it over my phone. Well, the motion was unanimously accepted, so we went to my place and fed Fidel Castro's speech with me translating over the phone to our station live. What a feeling of power to hear that number 2 man at the station pick up my phone in my living room and say, get whoever's on the air off the air, we're coming through live. Then it was time to get on to Manhattan Center. And by that time, everybody had at least 1 beer. Some had had at least 2 beers, and the night wasn't getting any warmer. It wasn't getting any cooler. It was staying right there, hot. And the idea came up. I forget whose idea it was, but, you know, who cares? Somebody said, look, Barry, it wasn't my idea, but I went along with it. I'm not trying to exonerate myself just because it wasn't my idea. There are an awful lot of bank robberies pulled by people with masks and guns, and it wasn't their idea. So I'm not claiming anything except what I'm claiming, complicity. The news director of the station said to me, Barry, do you have any more of that Fidel speech that we did not use on there? I said, sure, I got 5 minutes. He said, you got 5 minutes that we haven't used yet? I said, sure. He said, well, you know, why don't we have another beer or two? And then we'll call the station again right from here and just say we're at Manhattan Center. I mean, same Cuban dictator, he's going to say the same thing. He's not going to change his Caribbean. He's not going to change his world outlook between the Central Park Mall and Manhattan Center. So let's just wait, have another beer, and then we'll feed Chapter 2. We gave you Fidel on the mall. Now we're going to give you Fidel for Manhattan Center. Well, it sounded so round and firm and fully packed and such a great idea. I saw nothing wrong with it. So sure enough, we got on the phone, and the news director, with one of those big full-barreled voices, said, "We now take you to Manhattan Center, Barry Farber, translating for Fidel Castro." And all we did was run the tape down a few words beyond where we'd left off, and it sounded like there I was, crowd noises, same Fidel, here I was translating. And that was that. Good night's work. Few more beers after that, and then they all went home. I went to bed. The next day, we learned that Fidel Castro never made it to Manhattan Center. Yeah, there was a bomb threat. Yeah, there was a bomb threat after his speech in Central Park. And he went right back to his hotel, and that was that. Never got to Manhattan Center. Oh, you heard me translating from Manhattan Center. But, this is not an O. Henry ending. An O. Henry ending means it's a trick ending that the whole story builds up to a point and then surprises you. This is the opposite of an O. Henry ending. This is just a double ending, okay? That's one end of the story. The second end is this. This was, as I told you, this was no 5-watt station on top of some forgotten college at the other end of Queens. This was the #1 radio station in New York City. Here we had Fidel Castro from Manhattan Center. No, that surely wasn't exclusive. No other station had that because, of course, he never got to Manhattan Center. But we never heard boo. We never heard beep, bleep, or anything from bosses, sponsors, public, or anybody. The whole thing was like dropping a tulip leaf down the Grand Canyon and waiting for an echo. The largest station in New York could pretend that Fidel Castro was at Manhattan Center, and nobody ever said anything. When we reconvene, I take you back to my birthplace on the air, and do I share that birthplace with an illustrious man who was not part of our party. He may not have even known that story until right now, but he still has citizenship because he was born there too. His name is Brucie, Cousin Brucie. This next commercial is powerful and effective because it makes a promise that appeals to everybody, and for a limited time, it is free. Avocation Day and Night Creams will make you look younger. Avocation Day and Night Creams, the latest triumph from the labs of skin biochemist Dr. Frank Panzarella, when properly applied, will make you look younger in about 10 days. Now, Avocation Day and Night Cream is sold at better drugstores, but right now you may have a free sample. We know you'd rather get Avocation free than pay money for it, and we also know you'll keep right on buying Avocation Day and Night Cream when you see how well it works. To get Avocation Day and Night Creams free, call. I'll give each number twice. Call during the business day, 516-752-0333, 516-752-0333, or 800-527-0392, 800-527-0392. PhD Skin Research Labs is now a publicly traded company on the over-the-counter exchange. New York Institute of Technology is a career college for today's students. It's a private college, low tuition. New York Institute of Technology offers graduate and undergraduate degrees, plus such non-credit and certificate programs as paralegal and culinary arts. Over 50 majors, from art and architecture to technology and medicine. Whether you're in or out of high school or an adult seeking a new lifestyle, New York Institute of Technology has a career for you. At Manhattan, Central Islip, and Old Westbury campuses, facilities first-rate, faculty, professionals in the field gain hands-on experience in your major, and you can also earn while you learn through the cooperative education program, New York Institute of Technology. Opportunity and excellence for today and tomorrow. Contact or visit a campus near you. I'll give each number twice, 212-399-8351. That's 212-399-8351 or 516-686-7520, 516-686-7520. Parkside Memorial Chapels are one of the largest family-owned Jewish funeral homes in the New York metropolitan area. At the Parkside Chapels, they treat your loved ones as they would their very own. Tahara, the traditional washing and dressing, and Shmira, the watching of the remains by a pious Jew when requested, is supervised by the Chevra Kadisha. The Parkside Chapels truly care for those you care for. Parkside's commitment to the Jewish community is what's made them New York's largest family-owned chapel. So when suddenly you need someone familiar, remember Parkside Memorial Chapels, one of New York's largest family-owned Jewish funeral homes. A name worth remembering, Parkside Memorial Chapel, serving you in the 5 boroughs, Nassau and Suffolk counties, Monticello, and in Florida. Parkside Memorial Chapels. Cousin Brucie, you were telling me what's new since you and I last met. Would you repeat for the world what you told me?
First of
new,
all,
just since we last met, which wasn't that long ago.
No, well, you and I meet all the time on trains and planes and whistle stops. First of all, I got to tell you something. Nobody tells a story like Barry Farber. You know, I knew that story, of course, and it's something that we sort of held as a sacred trust, and I swore I would never say anything to you, and you and I never talked about that because I knew that thing, and that was a thing that scared me, and I was amazed how you handled that in those days. Huh?
Now, do you know what I find in that story? Of course, when the book came out, and notice, I'm protecting the guy who wrote the book. I'm not even mentioning his name.
Well, we can say Rick Sklar. Come on, he's a friend of both of ours. Come on, he's a good, and it was a good book.
Yeah. Well, one thing just occurred to me very, very much later, and that is Rick mentioned my name in that story, but he protected the ringleader, the news director, whose idea it was. Now, it never occurred to me for a year and a half after I read it that how do you like this egg-sucking dog mentioning my name and protecting the name of the really guilty? But see, that's why the North won. A Southerner just wouldn't even realize he'd been spat upon for a year and a half.
You're a Southern gentleman,
Southerner's
Barry.
proud to be mentioned at all, you know.
Actually, I don't think that was the reason. I mean, knowing Rick was not protecting anybody. I think, obviously, the name Barry Farber is much more important and makes better print than the other particular name.
Well, anyhow, let me tell you what I got out of that story, Bruce. I can never blame anybody for having been a member of the Hitler Youth. The SS is different. But I have heard people discriminated against because in Nazi Germany he was a member of the Hitler Youth. To me, case dismissed. Because that's exactly what... Well, here I was, just as innocent. I was way above the age of consent. But the big boys were doing it. The experienced ones were doing it. My bosses were doing it. They weren't embarrassed. There was nobody sneaking around. They were proud of it. They were laughing about it. They were bragging about it. There was no attempt to turn up the collar on your trench coat and furtively dart your eyes in both directions.
Now, you can't tell me, Mr. Farber, knowing you and knowing what kind of a broadcaster and honest man you are, that you were not mortified when this happened. No. You were waiting for the phone to ring. I can't believe that.
Bruce, so help me. I want my maker to consume me.
Well, let me move out of the room first, please.
No, I want there to be lightning and thunder and a smoking crater where my feet were if I thought there was anything wrong with that at the time. It was the name of the game. We were beating the system. It was fun. It was clever. You bragged about it.
Today, if that happened
bragged
today,
about it.
Barry, would you? What would you
Oh,
handle it today?
if I were sitting there today, I want to be a judge in a black robe, banging a gavel and sending whoever did that to jail. I mean, that's
right.
awful.
But you actually were an innocent party to this thing. You really were. I'm sure you did not. Well, obviously, you went on the air. They didn't know that they were doing this either. I mean, I can't see you. I no matter what you say to me, I still can't believe that you didn't have a feeling of, oh my God, what did I do?
No, not Bruce. Bruce. Don't forget. Now, wait. Let me tell you what you're committing now. Now, by my with cousin Brucie, I'm not going to pinwheel into philosophy and morality, but a lot of people who say how awful it was to drop the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki forget that they were jumping up and down and yelling whoopee at the time because it ended the war, and their daddies did not have their daddies who had just won in Europe and were en route to the Far East were not going to have to invade the Japanese mainland against that fanatical resistance that would have been met on the Japanese beaches. They forget that. So, don't forget the spirit of the times. The spirit of that times was far away from what an awful thing, violation of the public trust. This was before the payola scandals. This was before radio had a conscience.
We used to do a lot of funny things between stations. I mean, that I remember, the famous Vive la France thing with Charles de Gaulle between WINS, which involved the same man, Mr. O'Brien, with the WMGM Minutemen. I'll say the names, you don't have to say it, but I'll say it. And there were some very funny stories. Some terrible things happened that by today's standards would not be allowed. But I guess you're right. Maybe by yesterday's standards, we had a good time.
What makes me thrilled that we have 2 hours is we have time to do the old and the new.
And I never even answered your opening question.
No, we've got to tell that Vive la France story. We've got to tell the story.
Great story.
Of the interview live with Charles de Gaulle, simply because you and I shared it. It would be a crime for us not to tell that story, even though we told it last time, about 18 months ago, whenever we were together. But I want you to tell the world what you told me. Some people, when you ask what's new, have no answer. Listen to Cousin Brucie's answer. Bruce, just tell the world what's new in your life since we last met.
Since you and I got together, my whole world has changed around, and I am busier today, Barry, and all my friends listening, as most of you know, than I've been busy at the height of my career. Last year, about this time, I received a call from a lady named Eleanor Bergstein. Now, Eleanor Bergstein is the writer and co-producer of a motion picture that was the biggest box office sensation of the summer and still is doing very well, called Dirty Dancing. And she said to me, Cousin Brucie, you're the spirit of the 60s. Now, as you know, we got a little history here, a little tradition. Hollywood now has been putting out motion pictures such as The Big Chill, Stand By Me, Back to the Future, Peggy Sue Got Married, La Bamba, and on and on and on. Now, the common thread of all these motion pictures, Barry, is the music and the spirit, the esprit de corps of the 60s. All of a sudden, Cousin Brucie's on a lot of demanding, because Cousin Brucie's the spirit of the 60s. Because of that 40-state reach that we had with WABC, everyone knew me all over the country. So all of a sudden, I get a call from Eleanor Bergstein, bless her heart, who wrote a motion picture called Dirty Dancing, and the Vestron would like me to be in the film. I get the script, and I look at it, it's okay, it looks like a nice film. My wife, Jody, who's listening now, went berserk. You had Jody on these microphones, too. And Jody went crazy, my kids went crazy. So I called Eleanor, I said, okay, I'll do the film. Well, in this motion picture that, unbeknownst to me, would be such a huge sensation all over the world, incidentally, it's now being translated in 25 languages, they make me a magician. Before I became the magician, I had 5 different occupations. I was originally hired to be the social director, which I turned down, because I wanted the social director in that film to be a fat, chubby, big-cheeked, punchy guy that they have up in the Catskills. The story is about 1963, Barry. It takes place in the Catskills of upstate New York. It's a Jewish and Italian resort, right? And the whole McGill is up there. Everything's happening. Now, we shoot the film not in the Catskills because that's not Hollywood. Hollywood did not think the Catskills looked like the Catskills. We had to shoot it in a place called Lake Lure, North Carolina, which is, you know where it is? Outside of Asheville? I mean, Seedyville. I mean, forget it. Now, I'll tell you, I got a very funny story to tell you, which you will love and the audience will love. Anyway, I finally get there, and I'm on the set for 8 days, and I'm helping pick all the oldie music. They call me the music period consultant, and I play a magician finally. And in this film, you see Cousin Brucie dressed up as a magician, sawing the ingenue Jennifer Grey in half. And I'm doing lines like, is your Blue Cross paid? These real terrible Catskill jokes. And it'll only hurt for a minute, and was it good for you as I saw in half? Cute bits. And throughout the motion picture, you hear Cousin Brucie on the radio, a la 1963, like I'm doing today at CBS FM, doing Cousin Brucie. So you hear me throughout little pockets of the film, giving it a spirit. I'm going to tell you a funny story there. So that's what I'm doing in Dirty Dancing. May I continue with this? This is a great story. You are going to really love this. One of the major scenes, I assume you did not see Dirty Dancing, right? You're the only one probably in this entire city that hasn't seen it. You saw it, right? Our engineer and producer just saw it. Everyone has seen this film. It's a huge hit. Well, anyway, while we're filming this thing, they lease a Baptist boys camp in Lake Lure, which is up in the hills, and it's raining for 8 days. And by the time I get to the set, it looks like Rambo 4. I mean, it's mud and it's disaster. But through the magic of Hollywood, these magicians, these geniuses, they convert this Baptist boys camp, which has been closed for 10 years, Barry, into the most magnificent, look like the Concord of Grossingers in its heyday, right? And they say, all right, it's time now. We're going to shoot the big Friday night dance scene. We had dinner, and now it's Friday night. There's 150 people have to show up. They start looking at the people, the director and the producer, Eleanor Bergstein and Linda Gottlieb, and they say to each other, and I'm right there listening to them, something's wrong. And I say to them, yes, something's wrong. Nobody looks Jewish in this room. I mean, we're down in Lake Lure. I mean, these are Baptists in the room. Everyone's blonde hair and turned up noses. And it doesn't look right. Emil Ardolino, who's a magnificent director, really sensitive, says, let's dismiss everybody and get new extras. So they make a call. The next day they make a call. They call all the synagogues in and around Asheville, North Carolina. And he said, we got it knocked up this time. This is it.
All the synagogues in and around Asheville, North Carolina.
And they call all the Jewish clubs because they want to get people who look New York, right? So they have the extras. They have 150 people from the synagogues and the Jewish clubs and the dance schools and everything. They will get on buses, and they had to report at 6:30 a.m. the next morning to shoot this big scene. Well, everybody's ready to shoot. We got it now. Now it's going to be realistic because every point was made. It really is a very realistic. Every point was made. The dress and the speech and the Cousin Brucie things and the music. Well, the buses, 3 or 4 buses pull up with the extras, and everybody waits with great anticipation. The Jewish people are arriving. The Jewish people are arriving. The buses pull up. The doors open, and out step 150 blonde-haired, turned-up-nosed Jewish people. They all look the same. It did not matter, which taught everyone
named Daryl and Kevin,
We are all the same no matter where we are. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, I grew up in North Carolina, and I remember the Baptists real well. They would come to our brotherhood breakfast at the synagogue and eat every bagel in sight and then complain the donuts were too stale.
Just mentions the language club that we have at the village in Sheepshead Bay on Tuesday night. Anybody who just says Barry Farber's language club gets 20% taken off the food portion of your check. Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at the Village Restaurant. The Village Restaurant's food is excellent. The prices are reasonable. They don't need bribery. But I'm proud of Joe, and I'm glad they're giving my people 20% off just for mentioning the language club. You don't have to come to the language club. Just mention the language club every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at the Village Restaurant in Sheepshead Bay, 2612 East 14th Street. Call 718-769-4461, 718-769-4461.
Going abroad? Need foreign money? Go to the Pan Am building and see Harold Reuter and Company, R-E-U-T-E-R, the foreign money people, since 1955, buying and selling foreign banknotes and traveler's checks of all countries of the world, especially Europe. Harold Reuter provides the requirements of individuals, businesses, travel, and financial institutions with fast, courteous, and efficient service. Daily quotations available on request. All rates are net, no service or commission charges, conveniently located right there at 200 Park Avenue in the Pan Am building. That's Park Avenue and 45th Street. Call 661-0826. I'll repeat that number. See Harold Reuter for foreign money, Park Avenue and 45th Street in the Pan Am building. Let me give you that number again twice. In New York, 661-0826. That's 661-0826. Some people want to tell you about savings. My new sponsor, Auto Parts Place, wants to tell you their savings. They're having a grand opening. Get a pencil. Get the address. We have Auto Parts Place in Astoria, Auto Parts Place in Long Island City. Grand opening. Sample savings include Castrol GTX motor oil, 89 cents. Monroe Gasmatic shock absorber, $18.95. DuPont car wash, 99 cents. Champion Cooper Plus spark plugs, 89 cents. Quaker State low 40 motor oil, 79 cents the quart. 40-piece tool set, only $3.88. Transistor burglar alarm, Mighty Mac, $11.88. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, September 18, 19, and 20, a big party. Don't miss it. Auto Parts Place, 32-98 Steinway Street in Astoria, 3rd anniversary, and in Long Island City, 30-98 21st Street. That number to call, 718-274-1030. That's 718-274-1030.
WMCA.
I'm Barry Farber, and I thought it was all my idea until I realized it was ancient religious wisdom. Much better than doing well is coming from way down all the way up and then doing well. I don't know how I was ever in the room. I mean, could they have been so insensitive that in a meeting like that they just let people like me walk in to pick things up off a desk or something? I certainly wasn't part of the meeting. I was a nobody at the station, really. I mean, literally a non-person. I had no show. I had no job. I was sort of a friend of the boss. My previous boss was a dear friend of the owner of the station, and when my previous boss retired, he begged the boss to put me on salary and maybe explore some kind of a talk show someday. That was my role at the station. But for some reason, I was in the main office when a meeting was going on, a very unpleasant meeting. A man named Bruce Morrow was not doing well in his early days as a disc jockey on this powerhouse station, and he was fighting for his life in that room, and it was not pleasant for me. He was saying, and I heard him, he was saying, look, I don't care what the ratings say, everybody's listening, more and more people are listening. Tell you what we'll do, we'll put the show on tape one day and we'll drive around all the places where the teenagers are hanging out, and you'll see those, you'll hear what they're listening to. We'll drive by their cars, the windows will be, you'll hear who they're listening to. Honest, they're listening to me. It was really like a man saying to a firing squad, don't shoot. I liked that man. And I said, gee, I sure hope he survives this. And he not only survived, but went on to become, well, I can say it in 2 words. I don't have to give you details. Cousin Brucie. Bruce, I can put my hand on a Bible and swear to the details of what I just told you. Do you remember that meeting?
Yeah, but you have to give a little more detail. There was a man named Murray Kaufman, and a man named Lee Gorman, and a man named Hap Anderson. I mean, might as well name names. I talk about this in my book. And Murray the K, who I must, in my book, and I will always say this straight to anyone's face, I admire the man's talent, but as a person, he was a skunk. He was not a nice man, and God rest his soul, he's passed away. And I've never really discussed this to too many people, except till I got in the book, and I could have told much more in the book, and for his memory, I did not.
Forgive me, I haven't even mentioned the title.
I know.
Of the
Well, let me just
book.
finish this. Let me finish this point. And Murray at that time wanted Cousin Brucie's shift. He was a young kid, 20-some-odd years old. And you walked in after Murray and Mr. Gorman got together financially for many weeks. And this was done. This was a business transaction. And I was being edged out and offered the all-night show when you walked into this thing. And I was told that the ratings were no good, et cetera, et cetera. You're out, unless you want the all-night show. Of course, I would never take the all-night show. I wouldn't want to do an all-night show. That's not my kind of thing. For radio, if I did a talk show, I'd be very honored to do a talk show at night because it's a different thing. And they knew I would not take an all-night show, that type of thing. So I left, which was the best thing that ever happened in my career. But just to say it wasn't doing it, I don't know if you knew this, but in the book, there's all the details. Now, of course, Mr. Gorman's dead. Murray passed away. Hap is somewhere in Hawaii, I think. Rick knows the details of this, Rick Scorno. I mean, I grew up very quickly in radio. I was seduced by radio when I was 8 years old, maybe even younger, which I talk about in the book. And that really helped me grow up quite a bit. I got smacked in the mouth very early by people I trusted and admired and respected. And I realized at a very early age that life is not like my mama told me it was, a ball of roses and just going shopping every day and nobody's going to hurt you.
Far be it from me, as Mortimer Snerd, to argue relativity with Einstein. But are you sure that I seem to think that you stayed at WMCA, you stayed in the day, at WINS, that you stayed there in the daytime and that you prospered after that particular meeting?
Now I'll tell you what you're confusing. After that meeting, I left and I went to WINZ in Miami. You lost me for about a year.
Are you sure there couldn't have been an earlier meeting
No.
after which you stayed?
I was always on in the evening. No, I think you're I think you maybe romanticize something a little bit, possibly, because you and I have always been friends, and I know that you've always respected me like I respect and admire you. I left WINS, and right after that, believe me, it was a very terrible time in my life, because I was there 2 years, and that's where Cousin Brucie was born, the whole thing. Murray wanted that shift very badly. He was on late at night, and he wanted that 6 to 10 spot. And after, he did a few little business transactions, they got it. As I said, I go into this quite delicately with my book.
And wait, don't be shy. I'm sorry. I'm just so interested in getting together with you and talking about these good old times that I forgot.
I'm probably shocking you at saying these things.
A major book on the broadcast table is Cousin Brucie, My Life in Rock and Roll Radio. He was rock and roll radio, and he thought his career ended when he quit being a rock and roll radio disc jockey. But like Jolson said, on bended knee with arms outstretched, you ain't seen nothing yet. So Cousin Brucie is still going from pinnacle to pinnacle. But what he was when the book went to press is, between hard covers, Cousin Brucie, My Life in Rock and Roll Radio.
And the book is co-authored by a very brilliant young lady. Her name is Laura Baudo, who is a New Yorker and a very dear friend of mine. It's published by Beech Tree, which is a division of William Morrow. No relation, by the way. And the book is out about 2 weeks, and we're knocking them dead all over the country. I'm on a book tour now, right? And you're looking at an energetic character here. I don't know. I'm going on nervous energy. You've been on book tours because I've met you hinter and yon.
Right.
And you know how difficult. I cannot believe. I wish you, as a friend, you would have said to me, Brucie, you're writing a book. Be careful. I had no idea what happens to a person emotionally, mentally, and physically on a book tour. It is unbelievable. Unbelievable. I've been getting on wrong planes. I get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. I'm sure you've gone through this. I'm in Philadelphia or in Cleveland or I'm in Los Angeles. I get off to the left side of the bed. I go to the bathroom like everybody else. Nature's calling. I go smash right into a wall because the bathroom was on that the night before in Cleveland. I have no... Right, Barry? Am I kidding? This really happened. Yeah.
Okay, continue. After that awful meeting that I happened, I
tell
don't recall why I was even in the meeting. I was not part of the...
Well, but you, Barry Farber, you were all over that station. You were producing, and Barry is denigrating his position there because Barry was a very important force behind the growth of WINS in those days. Barry, I'm telling you were. I know that. I mean, from the days with Tex and Jinx into the days of developing news on contemporary radio, you were right there from the beginning. You were very important to all of us, and you were always hopping around that station. You and me were hopping all over the place. I know that. I used to see you walking out, running in. I'd run out, you'd walk in, and you have a lot of energy like I do.
I was certainly not part of the clique that said, let's get Bruce Mara in here and tell him how lousy he is, and he's got to move
the
to
clique was
all-night.
two people, and let me tell you something. People have to grow up, and it's all in the development. I'm a Brooklyn kid, and as you know, as I've told you before in these microphones, Brooklyn people, like the Bronx, we're survivors. And if someone puts a wall in front of me, damn, I'm going to knock it down. I mean, if I want to knock it down. And nothing has ever stopped me, and nothing ever will. I love what I'm doing, and one thing all I care about is that my audience wants Cousin Brucie, which obviously they do. I'll always be here until the last breath comes out. And I know that someday when I go, I'm going to have a transistor radio with me.
The Cousin Brucie was a happy accident.
Yeah, that happened to WINS. You remember that? One night, in those days, we didn't have to have security guards downstairs and magic numbers at the doors. You got security numbers here. You got to have codes, and they take pictures of you, and buzzers come in, and it looked like I came into WMCA like CBS. It's like science fiction. You see on Star Trek. You put the card in, you push this, you have to put your fingers under, and if you're wrong, someone smacks you in the hand. You don't want to. In those days, they used to let people come up. And we were at the Hearst building, the chapel we used to call it.
The Flatiron building.
The Flatiron building.
The Gulf and Western building is there
which
now.
is now. And one night, a little old black lady came up to see me. We let her in the studio. We were sitting in a booth. Remember the size of Mr. McCora's booths? We used to sit in almost a bathroom. He doubled with everything. And she came in and she said to me, "Excuse me, Mr. Morrow." And I said, "Excuse me, ma'am, just let me get my record." In those days, we'd spin discs, records. Now, of course, we're playing laser discs and we're playing cartridges. And I put the record on. I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "I'm in a little trouble." She said, "Sir, do you believe we're all related?" And I looked at her square in the eye, and I got to tell you something. Yeah, I do. I really believe that, honestly, in life. And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I do." And she said, "Well, cousin lent me 50 cents to get home. I'm broke." Yeah. Well, I gave the little old lady 50 cents. And those days, I lived in Brooklyn, New York. I hopped into my little brand-new white convertible that I earned myself, right, working at WINS, and I was going through the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel home late at night. And all of a sudden, I heard the bells ring, and the lights went on. I said, "That's it. I got my shtick. I'm going to be called Cousin Brucie. I went into WINS the next day, and I spoke to the program director. And I said, Mr. Program Director, I got my shtick. I got my hanger. From now on, I want to be called Cousin Brucie. The man looked me in the eye and said, are you crazy, son? That is the corniest thing I've ever heard. This is not Cleveland or Cincinnati. This is not Cheesequake or Parsippany, New Jersey. This is the Big Apple, man. That's too corny. And I said to him, Mr. Leeds, and I'll mention his name again, which is in my book. By the way, I talked to him recently. Mr. Leeds, don't tell me about a New Yorker. I'm a New Yorker, and there's nobody more corny than a New Yorker. And to me, corny is happy. Well, to this day, it's Cousin Brucie. And that's how Cousin Brucie came about.
So you haven't yet finished telling me what's new since we last met. No,
you and I need about 10 more minutes.
We've talked. Well, hold it. We've talked about the book.
Okay.
We've talked about the movie. We're not through yet.
No, not at all.
We're not through yet with new business, and in this Robert's Rules of Order, we're going to cover new business before old. First, Gala Realty specializes in condominium and co-ops in some of the city's most exciting neighborhoods: Manhattan's Upper West Side, Bay Parkway, Ocean Parkway, and Ditmas Park in Brooklyn, and Flushing, Jackson Heights, Rego Park, and Forest Hills in Queens. And if you need to sell your present apartment, Gala's staff of over 40 resale professionals will help you get the highest price. This week's featured Manhattan condominium is at 200 West 109th Street. All new kitchens, new baths, and great sponsor financing. These 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartment are the Upper West Side's best bargain, starting at only $104,600. So if you're looking for a new place to live, look for Gala Realty ads in the real estate sections of the New York Times and New York Post, or call 212-582-4252. I'll repeat that. Gala Realty, New York's co-op and condo experts. Call 212-582-4252. Selling property in Brooklyn? You need a trusted name. Charles LaBella Real Estate, 1-800-USA-BELL, or just dial LaBella, L-A-B-E-L-L-A, a trusted name for many years, always ready to serve you better. Call Charles LaBella for a free, on-the-spot, no-obligation appraisal. To quote Charles LaBella and the Action Team, and remember, it doesn't take us a century to sell your house. And now, toll-free, 1-800-USA-BELL, or just dial LaBella. Why not ask one of the many thousands of satisfied LaBella customers? They'll tell you how good they are. Call them toll-free, 1-800-USA-BELL, or dial 718-LaBella. They're open 7 days a week. They're especially effective in the Bay Ridge, Bensonhurst, Sunset Park, and Sheepshead Bay areas of Brooklyn. And remember, they say it doesn't take us a century to sell your house, and you'll soon find out how easy selling really is. What's their secret? Plain and simply, anxious buyers ready to pay you top dollar. So call Charles LaBella Real Estate, toll-free, 1-800-USA-BELL, or just dial 718-LaBella. MIC Tires in Long Island City on Northern Boulevard is the oldest and largest Michelin dealer in Queens. MIC invites you to come in and get ready for a great driving season with the finest tires made in America. Michelin, of course, all-terrain. It's the XC All-Season Performance. Try EPX, Progressive Responsive Steering, the XGT, Stunning Maneuverability, MXV, and Michelin's longest-lasting tire, the XH. There's a lot to know about tires, and your tire pro, Al Berman at MIC in Long Island City, knows it all. Let his 25 years of expertise guide you to make the Michelin choice. Call Al Berman, 718-626-5200. I'll repeat that. MIC Tires, finest tires made in America. Michelin, because so much is riding on your tires. Call 718-626-5200. Again, 718-626-5200.
WMCA.
I'm Barry Farber, and very few radio shows assign homework with a straight face, but required reading is Cousin Brucie, My Life in Rock and Roll Radio. Introduction by Neil Sedaka. And on the back, real testimonials, not just letters that they feel they have to write because a publisher asked them, but real love letters, just radiating real love from the likes of Frankie Avalon, Bobby Rydell, Dion, Freddie Gershon, Variety, Dan Ingram, Monty Hall, Leslie Gore, Chubby Checker, and they must have left a lot of them out because that took them right to the bottom of the page. Cousin Brucie, having softened the audience with the stories we've told, I wonder if you remember this one. And again, I'm not going to mention names. You go ahead. You're northern and I'm southern, and that's just one difference. I see no reason to. We all know. We know.
Well, if I see no reason to mention him, I wouldn't mention him either. But I think if it clarifies it.
Absolutely. Anyhow, a name that you have mentioned, Mr. Program Director. We had a mass meeting because we had a big problem. Big problem. Our station. There were two major rock and roll stations, WINS and WMGM. They were only about a quarter of an inch apart on the radio dial. Let's see, WINS was 1010, and WMGM, which is now WHN, was what?
Which is now WFAN.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
It's going
right. 1060, I think. Very close together on the radio
very
dial.
Close.
1010, 1060. Both 50,000 watt stations, and both fighting for the hearts and minds of young people. Obviously, being rock and roll stations. By the way, stations had to have news in those days. Every station had a newscast. It was required by law. So, in order to minimize the deadening effect of news, WINS went to news. They had we had our 5 minutes of news at 25 past the hour, and WMGM had its news at 5 minutes of the hour. And the ratings showed something very interesting. When we went to news at 25 after, 100% of the audience, everybody, all the kids, moved over to WMGM because they could get two rock and roll records while we were hung up on the news. When WMGM went to news at 5 of, they all came back to WINS because they could get two rock and roll records on WINS while WMGM was playing the news. And we wondered what we could do about it. And some people suggested a contest. There are all kinds of ways and means to grease the pig so nobody could catch it. And a program director got up with a straight face and said, I know what let's do. Let's eliminate the news. And everybody fell into a hush. I said, what? He said, eliminate the news. I said, but the FCC demands you have a 5-minute newscast. He said, no. I read the regulations. The FCC does not say every station must have at least a 5-minute newscast per hour. The FCC says every station must program 3.5 minutes of news every hour. It doesn't say when. So we won't have a newscast. We will interrupt with bulletins. We will make sure we get at least 3 minutes and 30 seconds worth of bulletins every hour. We'll scatter them randomly so nobody knows when they're coming, and then we'll advertise ourselves as WINS, the station that does not make you wait for news.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And then they went a step further. Do you remember what they used to do with the news when we had news on in those days? Do you remember they used to have sound effects?
Oh, yeah.
If they said, there was a car crash today at 57th Street, you'd hear in the background from the sound effects library, and we had unbelievable. They would make make-believe effects, and there was... Journalism was very wide open. I mean, like you said, there were no rules and regulations in those days, really. We made our own. We flew by the seat of our pants.
Dodge City.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to also now just continue if we can before, obviously I hope we're going to take telephone calls. I know there's a lot of people I'd like to talk to out there. I'm very proud of what's happening today because of this resurgence of the music and this feeling that everybody wants to get back to the 60s and with the romanticization, I guess we can say, of the 60s by Hollywood and by radio and television, the movie I talked about. I'm also very proud that I finally accepted an offer, a very nice offer from CBS Radio Network, and now I'm heard in almost 200 markets on a show called Cruising America with Cousin Brucie. Now, this is a syndicated network show fed out by satellite, that I do, that I record here in New York, and it's fed somehow by satellite to Los Angeles, where it's produced, and then it's fed all over the country. And this show, it's been on the air, it's going to celebrate almost 1 year on January 1st, and it's a very successful show, and it tells about the time and the place and the music and the events of the 50s, 60s, and 70s. It's a very exciting project for me.
Are your listeners, Bruce, the same people who listened to you in the 50s and 60s who have now grown up, or are these people who are the same age as your listeners in the 50s and 60s?
The answer is yes to both questions. I have all of my people here in New York and scattered all over the world listening to Cousin Brucie, and now we have their kids, and I'm gaining new listeners because everybody, as I said, is interested in what happened during this time. You know, like here, I have a 15-year-old. Her name is Mary. I have 3 children, as you know, Barry. I have a son, John, who's going to be a doctor. I have a 21-year-old, Paigey. And my young one lives with Jody and myself. And she says to me all the time, Dad, you were really born in the 60s? Gee, I wish I could have been there. See, now I'm a hero. I'm not a hero because I'm cousin Brucie. I am a hero, Barry, because I grew up and survived the 60s. The Monkees, the Beatles. This is very romantic to a young kid. And we're getting kids listening to this music. And I envy them because this music is new to them. So I'm getting a new audience, and I'm retaining my audience that grew up with the memories of Cousin Brucie as their friend and as their relative. I'm a very lucky man.
You know, I liked the music of the 40s, the pop music of the 40s.
You're an old stiff anyhow, Barry.
Better. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I can't lie about these things. I don't care how fashionable. I loved the music of the 40s better than I liked the music of the 60s. Now, it was no mystery to me when I'd hear a pop song from the 40s and 50s how that nostalgia would start churning. Mm-hmm. But what did surprise me, I was listening to you on CBS one night, and songs that I didn't particularly identify with at the time had the same power to rekindle nostalgia. The particular song you were playing was Teenager in Love.
By Dion. That's right, Dion the Belmonts.
Yeah.
Why must I be a teenager? And isn't that interesting?
Looking back, I didn't think it interesting at the time, but looking back, those I now understand that those songs were simply the next generation.
We have a very lovely organ in our body. It's a remembrance bank. It's analog. It's not digital. It's an analog thing. And it gives you a nice warm feeling in your stomach when you go back to something familiar. That's why we like to go to the same restaurants all the time. You know, we like, I have, at my radio stations, when I talk to my kids that I train, I tell them this is the basic philosophy. Familiarity breeds content. You know what I said? Content. Yeah, it does. It's very true.
Let's see if we have people out there who care about this kind of radio. If you would like to address a question to Cousin Brucie, you don't have to kiss a ring. You don't have to approach a throne. He's just folks from Brooklyn yet. You can pick up the phone and call 212-570-WMCA. That's 212-570-WMCA. All lines blank. Immediate receipt. No waiting. Call 212-570, and then the name of this radio station, WMCA. Once more, 212-570-WMCA. Hello. Welcome to TriStar Mail Service Empire. Let me begin by telling you a little bit about this empire. They service many major corporations, 6 days a week, 24 hours a day, by picking up and delivering their bulk mail along with their postal boxes to and from all post offices. Their prompt and courteous service makes them very reliable and valuable to their customers. You'll find their prices very reasonable. So why don't you give TriStar a try, and you will be amazed at how well they perform for you. Contact them at their field office, 85 Franklin Street, New York City, or call in Manhattan, 226-3700. I'll repeat that. Their main office at 1 World Trade Center, Suite 8817. Let me give you that number twice again. TriStar, that's area code 212, of course, 226-3700. 226-3700. Finding the right contractor for a construction job is the most important decision towards getting that job done right, and if you're looking, you found one. Frank Basile Contracting Corporation in the Bronx, 1917 Matthews Avenue. Well-established, dynamic general contracting company dealing with both new and rehabilitation construction jobs, both residential and commercial buildings. Frank Basile's specialties include all trades of civil works, performed with his own skilled and trustworthy crew. They're willing and capable to contract all or any partial combination of these trades and subdisciplines. Frank Basile Contracting works objectively, economically, problem-free, on schedule, within budget, and most of all with quality workmanship and high professional standards. The workmen of Frank Basile are well known in other phases of contracting: cabinetry, millwork, plumbing, electrical, mechanical, air conditioning, and ventilation companies. Call Frank Basile Contracting Corporation. Rely on their expertise to get the job, big or small, done right. Frank Basile Contracting, the contracting name in the Bronx. They serve all boroughs. Let me give their number twice. 212-822-0024. Frank Basile, 212-822-0024. New York is a city of hidden treasures. Mano a Mano, 580 Broadway, is a bounty of beautiful men's and women's international clothing collections at prices that make the competition walk the plank. Mano a Mano's colorful world of casual elegance beckons you to surround your body with their tailored finery from the international clothing markets of Italy, France, and the Orient, and lets you dress for the many people you are. Mano's designer talents, like Italy's Vittorio Muglia and France's Claude Dragon, create the chic men's and women's suits and sportswear that makes Mano pulse. Come to Mano a Mano at 580 Broadway for their summer sale and take an additional 33% off their already low sale prices. They're open 7 days, noon to 8, Fridays till 9, Saturdays 11 to 8, Sundays noon to 7, all major credit cards accepted. Mano a Mano, 580 Broadway, south of Houston Street. No real time to do justice to our first phone call before the news, but Cousin Brucie, let's just finish, for legal purposes, finish the question. Your movie is new since we last met, Dirty Dancing. Your book, Country, Cousin Brucie, is new since we last talked. Your CBS satellite radio show is new since we last talked.
CBS radio called Cruising America. And I do a lot of television appearances, radio appearances. I'm very involved I'm on the board of directors of a charity called Variety, the children's charity. Now, we have a telethon that you're on. And then Monty Hall and I co-host. I'm very involved with this particular charity. I also teach at New York University. I'm a professor of communications and broadcast. And I try always to find spare time. I got to find more time family. I think Jody is getting a little upset at me right now. I don't have enough time for the kids and Jody.
Do you ever get a chance to go back to your roots, namely Bermuda?
Bermuda?
Not Brooklyn, but Bermuda.
That's where I grew up. Yeah, I was there last year.
Remember you built a black church there?
That's right.
Now, we got a lot to talk about. We'll be right back with Cousin Brucie right here on I Started to Give the Wrong Call Letters. I started to give the call letters at a station where we grew up together.